If you're looking for a large mobile chicken tractor that's easy to move without an expensive wheel assembly, stick around and I will show you how I built ours. And I'll link the printable PDF plans in the description so you can build one too. I built the base out of 2x4 boards to keep the chicken tractor lightweight. After cutting the boards to length, I added pocket holes to the ends, then I attached the 2x4 pieces together with exterior screws to create a rectangle. Next, I used 3 cattle panels to create an arch inside the frame. I wrestled them into place by myself, but a second set of hands would have been nice. The 3 panels were slightly bigger than the frame. You could overlap them at the seams, but I decided to cut down one panel to make them fit without overlapping. Using the angle grinder, my husband was home just in time to cut one section off each side for me. I love cutting wood, but cutting metal is not my favorite. Once all the panels were inside the frame, I secured them to the wood with fence staples. I pulled the panels up so they were off the ground slightly, then hammered the staples in. They were a bit tricky, but not hard to do. Next, I added some fence wire to attach the cattle panels together at the seams. Using approximately 6 to 8 inch pieces of wire, I twisted it around the outer edges every about 2 feet. Now it was time to add the front and back. For the front, I created a frame for a door from 1x4 boards. I clamped them inside the frame where I wanted them to go, then traced the curve of the arch onto the top. I cut the board with a jigsaw just above this line. Then I drilled 4 holes towards the top of the board, just bigger than my fence wire, to use to attach it later. Before attaching the boards to the chicken tractor, I secured the top of the door frame with screws. I used a square to make sure that the boards were at a 90-degree angle. Then I put the door frame inside the chicken tractor and lined it up. Again, making sure the boards were at a 90-degree angle to the base. I secured the frame at the bottom with screws. To attach the top, I sewed fence wire through the holes I had drilled in the board and around the cattle panel edge. I used pliers to pull the wire tight, then twisted around the cattle panel a couple times to make sure it was nice and secure before cutting off any extra. For the back, I placed 2 1x4 boards inside the frame so they were at an angle. I traced the angle on the bottom and cut it off first, then repositioned the boards and traced the top arch. Cut it out and added holes the same as I did for the front, then sewed it to the back of the arch with fence wire as well. Once the cattle panels were installed, I noticed the frame was pushing out in the center from the weight, so I attached a center support to the bottom. First, I cut a notch in the end so it could go around the cattle panel, then I added pocket holes to the ends. I secured it to both sides with exterior screws. For the second side, I needed a second set of hands to push the frame in to meet the support before I could secure it. We have a lot of predators in our rural area and have lost a lot of chickens, so we decided to move our tractor inside of an electric fence for extra protection. So to save some money, I used utility mesh instead of hardware cloth to enclose the chicken tractor. I cut the mesh to fit inside the back of the chicken tractor and attached it to the wood with my pneumatic stapler. Then on the edges, I cut the mesh so I had 2 to 3 inch pieces extending past the cattle panel arch. I used my pliers to twist these wires around the edge of the cattle panel to secure them. Then it was time to repeat the entire thing on the front of the chicken tractor, but leave the center open for the door. Next, I built a door for the front from 1x4 boards. I cut the 4 pieces to length and attached them together with just 1 screw in each corner. The door will be able to pivot around and not stay straight. But I hung it inside the frame with some narrow hinges, only worrying about lining up the inside board with equal reveal on the top and bottom. Then I was able to adjust the door inside the frame to give me an equal reveal all around. Once it fit nicely inside the frame, I added a second screw to each corner to stop the door from shifting. I cut a piece of mesh to cover the door and attached it with staples. Then I added a hasp latch to hold it closed. It also allows me to add a carabiner clip as an extra protection on the door. I also added a piece of utility mesh to the cattle panel arch to prevent small chickens from being able to get out of the larger holes of the cattle panel. Our mesh was 4 feet tall, so I added 1 piece to the front part of the arch. Then I secured it to the cattle panels with zip ties. You could use wire, but my hands were exhausted from all the wire twisting I'd already done. When the zip ties break, I can replace them with wire to make it more permanent. To cover the back 8 feet of the cattle panels, I purchased a heavy-duty 8-foot by 16-foot tarp with grommets around the edges. I draped it over the arch and secured it with zip ties. Finally, I was able to add the wheels. Each wheel assembly has an upright board that is attached to the frame with pocket holes and a pivoting board that holds the wheels on it. I drilled holes to add the wheel, a bolt to hold the two boards together, and a locking pin. Then I attached the wheel to the pivoting board. I used exterior screws to attach the upright board to the frame. For extra stability, I added a support to the side from a 2x4 board, then placed the bolt through the board and attached the pivoting board onto it and secured with a nut. Then another support to the front from a 1x4 board. At first, I had all four wheels with this same assembly, but it didn't pivot well. And since we have to move the chicken tractor in not so straight lines, I decided to add a pivoting wheel to the front wheels. So I cut a new pivoting board and added blocks to the inside bottom of it. I secured these together with lots of glue and screws in each layer. Then I attached caster wheels to the bottom of the blocks. The caster wheels were more expensive than the lawnmower wheels that don't pivot. And they're a little harder to raise up since the wheels spin around, but they make it so much easier to move the tractor in different directions. Lastly, because we get a lot of rain in East Texas, I decided to add a simple roost bar in the back corner under the tarp. This is mostly a place for them to keep their feet dry when we get big storms, but I do find them roosting every morning. And it was all done. We used this tractor to grow our own turkeys this spring, and it worked perfectly. We also used it in the summer to introduce new laying hens to our flock, and next week we will get to use it to raise our next batch of meat chickens. I love that we don't have to worry about aerial predators, and the electric fence keeps foxes, raccoons, and dogs away too. It's so easy to move the birds to new grass daily, and you can easily feed and water them. This is truly my favorite chicken tractor. If you want to build one for yourself, get the plans linked in the description, and make sure to follow along at housefulofhandmade.com, where I have even more fun builds, things that can also help you be a little more self-sufficient.